Hello, you guys. Thank you so much for joining me today. We are coming in with CPR segment visit. I don't know if you guys have caught this. This is the Conundrums, Ponderings, and Reflections segment that I just impromptu started doing a few weeks back. I try not to talk about dates or times, but I kid you not. I just got on here and shared all of the stuff that I was already thinking over the course of a 24-hour day, reflecting on all of the conundrums that hit me, all of the ponderings that I did. I shared those over the airwaves because some of them are just too good to just hold on to for ourselves. And I love that. It's a great segment lead into who I have that is actually going to be joining me on this impromptu pop-in visit today on the subject of all sorts of awesomeness that we're going to find in Psalm 139, you guys. I hope that you are ready for this. If you don't know who I am, my name is April Metzler, and I have a show called the RSVP Show. And this particular video series is going to be one of the first pieces of content I'm going to have on a new podcast show called Intentionally Teachable Leaders, just like the name of my new business that we're launching to support our nonprofit organization, Kingdom Industries United. So, without further ado, who I have here with me today is David, and he is going to dive right into this awesome story that we were talking about behind the scenes, backstage, before I jumped on today. And I am not going to cover the airspace right now. I'm going to let him have all of this space. Thanks so much, David, for sharing this space with me today and talking about these conundrums, ponderings, and reflections.
You set me up.
I did.
Yeah, it was a really good setup. And now I'm going to be all blushy and embarrassed and not be able to talk. And, and then everybody's going to say, yay, he stopped talking for a change. Um,
So we were talking about, you guys, this awesome thing about colloquial phrases and idioms across cultures. Dave is actually he's a world traveler. He's been all over the place doing anything from ministering to speaking to people to coaching to training. He does all sorts of things, and he is so very talented and gifted. It is an honor to share this space with him. But go ahead and tell them a little bit about yourself, and then you can share that story you were going to share.
okay, thanks. Wow, this has all happened in the last hour. So this is really cool.
Yeah.
You noticed at my age, I said cool. I didn't say groovy and heavy and with it. Anyway, so yeah, small town boy, upstate New York, in a family of teachers, very popular village of no more than 1,250 people, still don't have a traffic light. Everybody knew everybody else's business. You could leave your bike out in the lawn and nobody would steal it. The doors are unlocked. It was that kind of place. And so it was easy to be a star if you had any talent academically or sports wise or otherwise. So I was blessed and fortunate to have some talent. And, I was president of the student council and captain of some clubs and won some awards and in the honor society and that kind of stuff. Unfortunately, I was John Lutz's brother instead of Dave Lutz. He was an all-American, all-star of every kind of sport. He was a babe magnet, and he was, I'd go to a dance at another school, and I would ask a pretty girl to dance, and she would say, "Oh, sure," and then she'd look at me and say, "You're John Lutz's brother. Is he here?" It was really rough to live in his shadow. But he finally left and went off to college, and I shined on my own. But what's interesting is I never went to church ever. Never to Sunday school, never held a Bible in my hand. I didn't even know the simplest of Bible stories. Okay, the nativity thing, maybe. I didn't know if it was historically real or relevant. I used to cry a little bit at the singing of the Little Drummer Boy for some reason. I have no idea. And at Thanksgiving and Christmas, my great grandmother, Granny McLuhan, who was the third generation after the founding of our village by my great 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 grandfather, she used to ask me to say grace.
Hmm.
And And so I would at Thanksgiving and at Christmas, Father, we thank thee for the night and for the blessed morning light, for rest and food and loving care and all that makes the world so fair. Amen. And my great grandmother, my grandmother, my mother, and all my great aunts, tears running down their eyes and, on their cheeks. I mean, he says it so beautifully, and all my cousins would go, it was just, anyway. So I got selected as an exchange student
Mm-hmm.
to go to South Africa. I went there, decided to let my very conservative short hair down and be a pain in the backside to everybody in the school, the Rotary Club, the family I lived with. And they decided I found out later that after 2 months, they were thinking of sending me back, which would have been the first in the history of the program. And they decided to send me to a camp, a Christian camp, a boys' camp. It was spring break for them. Anyway, I told my host father there's no way I'm going to go, and he said, you don't have a choice, and went to the bus depot to take all the boys up to the mountains for the camp. I met the commandant, a lawyer who's taking a break, and I went right up in his face and I said, don't you touch me with your religious mitts. I want nothing to do with it. And he described me later in the book I wrote he said, Davy, he called me Davy. Davy was a very angry young man. Long story short, they were sport. There was fun, and I was a show off and a wise guy. And the Baptist minister who was leading our tent of 8 or 9 boys, he wanted to quit the ministry, I think, by Wednesday because of my antics. But Thursday night, October 7th, 1970, Noel, the commandant, spoke about Jesus as if he were real and relevant, historical, and more than that, cares about me and knows me. Why Psalm 139 is so important to me is because he knows me from the beginning. He knows me from the inside out. And this is the kind of message he shared that you can't escape his notice. I got goosebumps. We're talking 50 plus years ago.
Mm.
Anyway, I thought that's interesting. I've never heard that before. And I went outside before bedtime and I wanted to just say thank you to him. And instead of saying thank you, I grabbed him by the lapels of his jacket and I shook him violently. I mean, truly violently. Tears running down my face. I'm screaming at him. Why has nobody ever told me this before? This is the most amazing news I've ever heard. Why? Why? He was shocked. He described in his in his story about me and my book. He said it was truly a momentous event in his own life, not least because he became my mentor for the next however many years, 15 years. But and he prayed with me, and I went back to my host family who were very nervous about what kind of boy was coming home. And after a few days, they said to me, something's different. And I said, what? And they said, well, the soft edges are the hard edges, the rough edges are gone.
Mm.
Something's happened to you. And I said, I don't know. I can only talk about, I feel like I've been born all over again. Now, Noel never shared John 3 with me. I didn't know born again language. And he followed up with me the following Sunday, took me to church, meet his family, went to church. Last part of this story is um, his little daughter, Suki, 5 years old. We're going to Methodist church. I'm scared spitless because I don't know what I'm going to do. I've never been to church. What do you do? And she came and sat on my lap in the car and she put her hands on my cheeks and she looked me straight in the eye. She said, Uncle Davy, you don't know Jesus? And I said, no, can you tell me? And she talked, he plays with me. He's with my dolls, with my kids, with my friends and my dog. You know what, Uncle Davy, you know what? He's really funny too. And that became my start. And so I got introduced to South African culture. This is in the middle of apartheid. And
Okay.
I got introduced the following year when I went back after turning down 2 pro contracts and a full scholarship, much to my father's horror. Um, it was in the middle of the Jesus Revolution. So
Oh.
not only am I learning a new culture and a new way of looking at the world in a crazy time historically, but then the Jesus Revolution was giving me another whole language as well. I couldn't talk about what had happened to me. It took me a while to get into the flow of that. But anyway, that's my background. But then after some years there, 3 or 4 churches, came back to America, to the U.S., went to England at the insistence of my another mentor, spiritual pastor I knew, um, and to go back into ministry in England as a Church of England pastor. And it didn't work out. Not my fault. Um, and finally, I sat down and said, maybe I need to get a real job. I mean, this is, and I started working with unemployed people through
Mm,
the church and working with some big projects. I got a job with a company where we were training, consulting, coaching unemployed folks. And then NATO got word of our work, and they were downsizing 200,000 military officers from the former Soviet Union after the collapse of the Soviet Union,
mm,
wanting to get them reskilled, retrained out into society, doing meaningful work and not going out with weapons and starting wars. So we were brought in to train, coach, counsel, etc. So I worked in 7 countries in those days, and that began my life as where I began to. It was important for me, and this is last thing I'll say. I was never a good institutional pastor. I
mm.
didn't like being the jack of all trades, the omnicompetent, guy that does it all from the front.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't like visiting people in hospital, although I did it and I could do it reasonably well. But
Right.
I wanted to be the guy. Somebody once described me, and it was really sweet of them, and I still hang on to this. He said, Dave is a gift detector and developer. He connects with people, understands what God has placed within them. He helps you discover that, and then he helps unlock that and use it. So that if God has placed something within you, I will help you find it, and together will work out a way that you can use it to honor him. Now, for me, that meant not doing it as a pastor in front of a church. It meant being a teacher, a trainer, a consultant, and coach. But now that's not a real job in the church. We don't
No,
have, so,
no, it's not. Yeah, it's
so,
very interesting because that is
yeah,
a needed role, and sometimes our pastoralship
yeah,
area of leadership is
yeah,
so inundated with all these responsibilities
yep,
that they have,
yep,
whether those are self-imposed or board imposed
yeah,
or
yeah,
congregationally imposed
yeah,
responsibilities, that is not something that a lot of them are allowed the room to
yeah,
flow in, even if they are gifted at gift detecting, as you said, because there's a measure of that. I love what you said, because it's not just that you identify and detect the giftings and talents that have been entrusted to each of your congregation, but also that you develop those things. And so in order to develop anything, there has to be a place for them
yeah.
in, and if that place is not created by the leadership, then there's no room for a growth or flourishing or anything like that.
Yeah, and
Just
bless our hearts as the church, we've gone and then created these large organizational experiences with personalities and performances and all that. And we invite people in and they can disappear anonymously into the crowd and they'll get something. But I'm kind of saying it's time for us to get off our pews, off our backsides, get off our knees, even get out the door and be part of God's answer to our own prayer. So
mm,
here I am trying to decide what to do. Oh, by the way, I forgot to mention, as I'm flying back from South Africa to start my new life in the US,
mhm.
I'm on the plane with a vice president of HR for some big corporate. And I don't even know what an HR is. I've nothing. I have no idea what human resources is. So for 28 hours, he coached and counseled me. And by the time we reached New York from Cape Town, he said, Dave, you really ought to get into leadership development and coaching and training in the HR and talent management world. And I go, okay, yeah,
Yeah.
I didn't know what it meant. When I got to England and the church thing fell out, and I'm working with NATO. In the
Mhm,
middle of all that, I discovered a management philosophy that was very compatible with my Christian values. Drive out fear, restore joy and pride of workmanship, break down barriers between people, instill leadership, lead and guide people, develop them from within, and empower them to find their gifts and blah blah blah. So
mm.
I started working in the European world, going in as a trainer and then discovering the organization needed some other help, or I'd go in as a consultant and discover they needed training. And so I started doing this, and that's what I've been doing ever since.
That's
But
awesome because
I'd love to be a
ultimately,
gift amongst gifts in the church. I don't want to
yeah,
be the gift. I don't want to be the guru up in the front. I'd like to be just part of the. That said, I'd really like to get on the platform and preach a bit more, but there we go. So,
Right. Well, I think you're already giving a word right now, brother. I've given you plenty of space and you're just going to float.
well,
I love it. And
how am I how am I going to
it's
segue to that thing we talked about before then?
yeah. Yeah, I'd love to. Yeah, we can definitely segue into that. I do want to highlight though, like it's important no matter what role or capacity of leadership that we operate in to actually pay attention and observe those that we are serving through that leadership. Like one of the biggest things that I see is that we'll get so busy with all of the to dos, just like our example with the pastoralship. It's applicable everywhere. Leaders get so caught up in the moving forward that there's a lot of tendency to swiftly move forward past the opportunity to really identify strengths and weaknesses and pour in that time investment to put the people in the proper position so that they can flow in what they are gifted at. I love that you were doing that on an HR side of that. And I just wanted to highlight
Well,
that importance
well,
because it's
thank you.
exceptional.
No, sorry to interrupt. I mean, but what's interesting is that the one of the big things that's happening in the corporate world, and not to blow my own horn in any way. I've been a senior executive in some global corporates, so it's not. I'm not sort of still the little guy consultant kind of speaking into it. I've been there at the top, played the games, and the big theme that's out there now is servant leadership.
Mm,
And then in the church, the big thing in my heart anyway is servant leadership. And so when I'm asked to do training and coaching consulting on servant leadership in a corporate, and we're talking now Muslim communities, I'm talking Middle East, wherever I am, Africa, Middle East, Far Asia, Central Asia, former Soviet Union, servant leadership. I use exactly the same material for both groups. The only difference is in the church one, I use Bible verses.
mm,
And I'm trying to say you've got to servantship or servanthood is not weakness. You're pushing someone up. You're identifying their skills, their ability, their talent, their sense of calling. You're unlocking it. It's a gift detection and development approach to help people grow, learn, and improve.
right.
And what's interesting is that the corporations are waking up to the fact that that's just not a warm and fuzzy, emotionally intelligent, nice and good thing to do. It's actually smart business.
Oh, yeah, it
Yeah,
is.
and everybody wins. You get pushed up, you get cared for, nurtured, and developed, and given an opportunity to develop your skills and whatever at work. You're going to go home happy. Your family's going to be blessed. Your community, everybody wins. So that's my message. If there's anything that if I could wave a flag and go out there and preach it, that would be it. Church or corporate, doesn't matter.
Yeah, and it really doesn't. It's about the why behind, the heart
Yep.
behind, how we do what we do. It's not that we do what we do, but how do we do it? Why
Yeah.
do we do it?
Yeah.
And if you don't know those answers, that's the challenge for any leader that's out
Yeah.
there to actually consider those things, whether it's before God or just before looking yourself in the mirror, because
Mm.
everything that you do, every thought, every word that you release out into the atmosphere, every action that you choose, decide, commit to take leads you down
Absolutely.
some sort of path. And that path, all those steps have an impact on the people around you. And it doesn't matter if, you are focused on, as we are, God and serving Him first and taking in all of those biblical principles in alignment. Most of the truths that you're going to find, if not all of the truths that you're going to find in the word, are applicable to life anyways. It's just honor and
You know,
integrity and truth and just being diligent and committed and working in a way that helps and serves and supports and encourages and considering others beyond ourselves,
no,
and
absolutely.
all of these things matter in leadership.
No, we talked about it earlier. I mean, I'm a great believer this sign that we hang around our heart and neck that says I'm under new management, His management, and that if we can walk out the door available to Him, and I consciously said, I am here for you today. We are co-workers in this, Lord. You have said that nothing catches you by surprise. You go before us. You know the hearts of every human being out there. There is nothing that cannot be used by you, anointed to sow eternal seed in someone's life. I just need to be willing. So anyway, just a very quick story on this. Now I'm having to train senior HR professionals in Saudi Arabia's biggest bank,
Mm.
and it's
No
Easter
need to
time.
name drop. We're good.
No, I don't. Yeah, yeah, and okay, they were the second biggest bank. But anyway, so it's now Thursday night. Friday, Saturday is their weekend at that time. Thursday night, it dawns on me. It's now I'm about the same time zone as Israel. Jesus is going to be beaten beyond recognition any minute now. It's going to be crucified, and I got really, I mean, it really got to me. Here I am, and the course I was teaching was called decision making, problem solving, and decision making, and
Mm.
how to make decision. Blah blah blah. Anyway, long story short, Friday I am worshiping. I'm crying. I'm singing. Fortunately, alone. Nobody likes to hear me sing. People get very emotional when I sing, and
I'm sure it's because it's beautiful.
oh yeah, 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 yeah. It
It's a
moves them. Yeah, sure.
joyful
Yeah, yeah.
noise to the
Yeah.
Lord. Sweet
There
aroma
you go.
of
Bless
praise.
you, dear. Thank you for that. And anyway, come Saturday, I go, continuing, and I'm beginning to feel like I'm being set up, and I don't know why. So
Mm.
we start the course on Sunday.
Mm.
They have their Muslim prayer break at the right time. After they finished, they were still praying. Three guys came to see me over coffee and said, they always call me Mr. Dave. Mr. Dave, um, this is a very special day for you, isn't it? I said, why? What do you mean? He said, what is for Christians, right? I go, why? He said, what is this resurrection? Yeah, what's that all about? And I go, oh, no, 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 no. This is Saudi Arabia, guys. I don't even have a hard copy Bible with me. I'm not going to, no, it's okay. We won't tell anyone. I said, people are listening, dude. Come on. No, tell us. So I gave them a very safe vanilla version of
Vanilla version.
what it all meant. And I kind of said somewhere in there, they said, you really believe this? And I said, I touched my heart. I said, here and here. Yes, I do. I know it's true. Huh. Anyway, so we left it. About
Right.
Tuesday or Wednesday that week, we're talking about how you make people make decisions, logic, trial and error, solving problems. And then I use the expression, some people go with their gut. That's that sense, that thing that they know that's right, or they feel it's right. And I talked about knowing in your knower. That was my phrase.
I
And I
love
said, you just know it here.
it.
And the guy stopped me, one of the guys that was in the coffee. And he said, you talked about that on Sunday when you talked about the Christian, this resurrection, whatever thing it was. And I said, what do you mean you know it? And I said, guys, I'm not going to, the religion police, I could hear them coming down the hall.
Right.
And one guy got up, literally went, looked down the hall, closed the door, came back, and there are 25 of these guys. They sat down and they said, talk to us.
Mm.
So now
Well,
I'm feeling, oh Lord, I promised you I'd be available. Do we really have to do it here? I mean, seriously. But so I gave them the story. I told them what I've told you earlier today about my own journey, how I didn't know God, want God, wasn't even aware of God. But then suddenly he invaded my history, got inside me, he's changing me from the inside out, and he knows me and I know him. And, whoa, what do you mean, Mr. Dave, you know him? I said, well,
right. And that in and of
that's,
itself is a
oh,
way out of the box.
the Muslim guys don't have any concept of a personal relationship.
No, yeah. Yeah.
So I said, well, and I told them more,
Mm.
and it was quiet, it was sincere, it was intense, and I didn't make an altar call, but I also didn't get arrested and go to jail.
Praise the
But
Lord.
what it made me aware of is that nothing escapes his notice. He knows what's going on in the hearts and minds of everybody out there, and if he has but a handful of us who are willing and able to make ourselves available,
Right.
he will go before us. And it's not like we walk around the corner and he walks around the corner and says, oh, my human, I didn't see that one coming. It's he says, I've got people who are available, are tools in my hands, we're partners in this mission, and I can use them for this. And I've got numbers of stories again and again over the past few years of how a word, a smile, a gesture, an act of appreciation. Even got angry with somebody once, and they said, "Well, you did that well," and God used it to have a conversation to sow some seed. So anyway, that's you're talking to a guy who's kind of pumped about this at the moment. And it's not, nothing surprises me anymore. Every day in Walmart, it happens. You know.
Well, and we were talking about that before we even did the broadcast, so we got caught up in this impromptu
Mm,
word usage. And I have called my little pop-in visits like I'm doing today, on a live broadcast here on my platforms, a pop-in impromptu visit. Like that's literally what I've called them. But that's what God does is he just pops in and it's impromptu and it's literally suddenly, there's
yeah,
just a whatever it is, whatever the case may be, there's this inspiration, there's a motivation, there's an idea that's just genius, and there's, sometimes it's like, how where did that even oh, I know where it came from, but really? Like and it's immediate, it's suddenly, it could be in the middle of a boardroom meeting, it could be on the
absolutely,
street,
absolutely.
yeah.
And the thing is, we're because we're so performance driven as a culture,
Mm,
and because we have measures of success in the church as well,
yes.
then if we don't see whatever it was we did, the completion of it, then we didn't do a good job, or we weren't successful, or it wasn't whatever.
Yes.
Um, we're seed sowers.
Mhm.
Uh, I've been blessed and fortunate over the years as a youth pastor, or as a Christian American baseball player who's all-star in South Africa, to get a chance to speak to thousands of young people on the platform there, and saw hundreds and hundreds come to Christ.
Mm,
And I've had the privilege of praying with people. In the Jesus Revolution days, we prayed with people in a cafe, on the street. It was happening all the time, on the train, every day. It just became a normal way of life. What's happened to us now, me included, is that we've got comfortable with the stuff out there that we use to accomplish our purposes. We've got the programs, we've got the media, we've got the slick presentations, we got the music, and it's all good stuff. I mean, I enjoy going to a good concert, sort of, sometimes. But anyway, uh, but what I've discovered is that I've talked to so many people in recent years who have got lost in the crowd,
mm,
who were looking for something more. And it was as simple as somebody who would just listen between the lines and hear what's really going. Not listen to give me a slick performance answer, but listen to understand.
mm.
And
Yeah, that
and that's
part. Yeah.
yeah,
But I'm sitting here thinking, there's so much there. A lot of people that I work with, especially leaders, and the higher you go up, this obviously from your own testimony, the higher that you go up, the less people are there that can relate and understand where you're coming from and actually walk that walk with you. And it's very interesting and intriguing how lonely the elevation is. It doesn't matter
oh,
on what accord. And so then we're seeking out, trying to find somebody that gets it, that understands, and we're coming up short so often, so many times. And it's very interesting. It's the same thing in our spiritual walk. It's the same thing in a professional walk. It's the same thing in life in general. Like for instance, a mother that has had one kid, versus a mother that has 9 kids. The higher you go up on that number, the less relatable the one kid to the 9 kids is. Yes, there's commonalities. They both have children, right? They're both
yeah,
moms, but the way that they serve, how they serve, the bandwidth, the capacity, the more kids you have, I promise you, the more that mother is going to have to figure out how to manage time, how to not procrastinate, how to guard against overwhelm, how to not be burned out. Like the list of these things of leadership qualities that I see just in the corporate structure is also applicable to life as well, and in ministry. Same thing with a minister that has 10 people in a congregation versus one that has 10,000 or just 1,000 or just 100. Like these leaders are similarly in the same bucket of responsibility as far as being a pastor and being dealing with people in a congregation and having a board that they talk things over with, of elders that can just pour into them and be sound counsel around them. But ultimately, the bigger the number, the less relatable it becomes. And so then you're just looking for that, that fellowship of like-minded leaders, and it's hard and it's difficult, to find that. But it's very interesting how God aligns us to the people that we need to connect with in different stages of our life. Have you found that to be true with the way that you've navigated
Yeah.
life so far?
Before I answer that more fully, I was pastoring a church in South Africa, and I inherited the leadership that was there.
Mm.
Two different groups, really. We got the young generation of people that just wanted so much more than the institutional church was offering, and then I inherited a group of what I'm going to say it lovingly, hardcore Pentecostal leaders, who had this idea that if I didn't wear a tie on Sunday, I wasn't really being a pastor.
Mm.
And we would behave so religiously some mornings. And I actually said this, and I thought I was going to get bumped off somewhere. I said, I just have a feeling that we're acting so religiously today. I think Jesus isn't here. He's down at the local bar because he has an authentic conversation with people.
Oh, no.
And okay, now that's a bit extreme, but at the same time, um, one of
You
the things
know
that
how many people just like, even I don't know who's gonna catch this on the airwaves, when they're gonna catch it, where they're gonna catch
all
it.
right, well, look, it's your show.
But
You're going to
I
get
the
the one.
people
You're
that
going to
just
get the complaints, not me. Um,
it's
but
so funny, but it's
the one
true.
thing,
It's
I mean, the thing that I've discovered is that our relationship, the best relationships in leadership for me, are values based, not necessarily beliefs based. Now, what I mean by that is we have a set of doctrine, we have a doctrinal statement. I believe all those things. And I've been in churches, I've been leading churches where we said, we believe this and this and this, all classic, traditional, evangelical language.
right.
But over here, I said, but my values say that the Holy Spirit is sovereign and he can do anything that he wants in a service on any given day. Oh, no, 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 no. That's not what we really mean. And I said, what do you mean by that, Dave? Well, I mean that if we're open and willing and available to him, and we have trusted him to give us the gifts that allow us to help restore the world and put people back together again and restore them in the image of God. Well, that's salvation, healing, deliverance, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, socially, financially. That's a restoration of the whole man and the whole society. We're here to serve that community, to bring that message. And we
Minister
therefore have to let the Holy Spirit do
reconciliation.
his thing. Oh, yeah, but we don't believe in speaking in tongues. Well, I'm not saying you have to believe that. Oops, sorry, I keep hitting myself. Don't have to believe that doctrinally. I'm just saying we've got to be open and willing to let God do his thing.
Mm.
And if we're willing to be open, we'll be surprised. So, long story short, I began to build, I adopted a principle. I stole 6 people from my congregation.
Did you
Yeah.
once
And
okay,
essentially
what is
what we
that?
did.
Before we got on here, which was funny, we were talking about you having to go on a live video and doing all that stuff, and I said you could just wear a bandana and call it good, but the first thing that came to my mind was the image of, like, a bank robber,
Oh
and here
yeah,
you are
I
fast
love
forward in this conversation talking about
it.
being a thief and a robber. Let's go.
Anyway, so I took these 6 guys and I started trying to live with them the things that I claim to believe values wise.
Mm,
And for example, one of the things we ended up putting on our sort of church pamphlet, in this place you will be loved unconditionally. Number 2, in this place you can fall flat on your face and you'll still be loved unconditionally. And what
mm,
we'll do is help you get off your face, dust you off, pick you up, walk with you, and help restore you back to where you need to be. But
mm,
it's okay to be yourself, to be authentic, to be real, to be transparent. And so then people say, well, how do you translate that into practice? Does that mean we can drink wine? I'm not going to get into that debate now. Uh, but what the point is that I took these 6 guys and I began to live life with them, and they kind of worked with some others, and eventually we went away for a retreat, and I was all prepared. I've got You got a dog too, huh? Yay! Mine's the reason why I put on weight during COVID.
She has a tendency to interrupt sometimes if she.
Well, mine would come and say, "Dad, you're really working too hard. I really think you need to go to the kitchen and have a snack, and while you're there, give me one too." Anyway. But so we went away for the retreat, and I'm all geared up. I'm going to do Bible studies. I'm going to really teach them, guide them, whatever. So we had the barbecue the first night. It's called a braaivlees in South Africa. We have a braaivlees. We had some good wine, and we just good laugh. And we got down, sit down. I say, "Okay, guys, let's get started." And I watched them look at each other. One guy looked at the other and said, "You say it." And one guy said to me, "Dave, we got something to say to you." I go, "Okay, sit down and shut up."
What?
There's nothing more you can say to us. There's nothing more you can live for us. So we want you to sit there and just let us share with you and with each other what you have been sharing with us and see if it's right. Come on, you can test us. Well, I sat there and I did nothing except get washed over with just love and encouragement. And around the same time, I met a student who was raised in the Dutch Reformed Church, ultra Calvinistic. The dominee, the pastor, is only one notch below the angels in terms of authority.
Mm.
And she listened to me talking to my spiritual father, who I described before, the lawyer guy. We're joking, we accusing each other of cheating at tennis and all kinds of stuff. And she listened, and she finally said to me the same thing that these guys said to me. She said, she said, "I know Duomenes, and now I know you." She thinks I'm a Duomene, a pastor. And she said, "I think that if I scratched deep enough, I would find a real human being underneath." She said, I can't do that in my church." And these guys said the same to me. "You've let us scratch deep. You've opened up yourself and connected with us on a level that's beyond doctrine."
Right.
And to this day, there's only one of them, two of them I've kept in contact with. I could pick up the phone tomorrow if I could find him in South Africa still, and we'd pick up right where we left off 40 years ago, 30 years ago. I mean, was it that long ago? Good grief. Anyway, and we're that kind of friends. We're covenant friends. We're covenant brothers. Friendship is so much a part of who we are in the family of faith. And
Right.
I just started ticking boxes and belief systems. And okay, I'm upsetting some of your listeners, but
Oh, who?
I just want to
No.
get out the door and go. But I hate Walmart. My wife is a manager there, and she comes home and then she's distressed and at war every day. But
Oof.
I will go there because I just never. And as I'm walking in the door, I'm saying, "God, I'm available to you today. Who have you got in Walmart for me today?" And the Lord says, "I don't want to be here either, but we've got work to do." It's just kind
Mhm.
of. And then
No, you're
so
good. And I don't, Chad's been with us this whole conversation, and
hi, Chad.
I've been I've been highlighting his comments so that the audience can see. And if you guys have some comments, you're more than welcome to add on here. But ultimately, I really like the direction of this conversation and how it's unfolded. And again, it gives us a lot of things to ponder and reflect on and consider. And some of them, yes, are conundrums. We can't
Yeah.
explain how God works, like why he works, but we know that he works. Like there's a confidence and a trust and a faith that God's moving, even when we can't even, some people say he, what is it? It's some kind of phrasing that they use, but it's keeping the faith in him, even though you can't trace him. And it's very interesting. And why it's coming up is that, sometimes we just can't identify all of the moving parts. We can't see it. And it goes back to what you were saying about planting seeds and having some kind of a need to see the finished end result of the seeds that we plant. But ultimately, that's not it. Like it's just these steps of obedience, of believing in him. I was talking to my daughter earlier today about the fact that that we Jesus talks about the difference of people that were in his time that believed once they saw, and then he amplifies that and extends it beyond the bounds of the time that he was in, the present state of time that he was in. And he says that the ones that believe without seeing, there's a blessing, a magnitude of a blessing there that awaits those who believe without actually seeing him in the flesh and seeing the things that we're operating in right in that moment. And I really just love it, because it's the belief of what we believe. Like, it's, oh my goodness, this conversation is so good. I'm just sitting here just
Faith
diving.
in our faith. We get that's
Yeah,
what we put. Sorry, I'm going to interrupt you just to say that
go
one
ahead.
of the cool things
Yeah.
that that we've been talking about in our fellowship group, and it's kind of been my hobby horse lately, is that the that sense of knowing, that non-intellectual, non-academic knowing in my knower, is a gift, and it is a profound gift, and it trans what's the word I'm looking for? Transcends all
Yes.
the other stuff that we try to put in there to make it, to justify it, to explain it.
Yeah.
And someone asked me once this question: "How do you know?" I go, "I just do."
Right.
And they said, "Well,
And
didn't you
how
have
do
an
you do
experience?"
it?
Well, I'm fortunate. Yes, he invaded my history and kind of grabbed me by the scruff of the neck and made me see, but
Right.
he helped me see.
Mhm.
It And then there's somebody else. Then there were these moments where he reaffirms his love for me by circumstances get organized in such a way that, but at the same time, yeah, but don't you have bad times in your life too? Well, yes.
Yeah.
And how do you feel then? Well, I still know in my knower that he's still on the throne. He still knows the end from the beginning. Nothing catches him by surprise. And if
Right.
I'm willing to hang that sign around my neck, we'll work it out, you know?
Right, right. And Cassandra jumped on here, and she helped me with that phrase that people use. We continue to trust him even when we can't track
Uh-huh.
him or trace him, is the one that
Yeah.
I was quoting. But Chad is throwing out us some scripture here. It says, "Thomas, because thou hast seen me, thou hast believed. Blessed are they that have not seen and yet have believed." Thank you so much for throwing that scripture in. And that's what was coming to mind when I was talking to my daughter today. We were just talking about the faithfulness of God to come alongside of us and meet us where we were at, and just be there even when. But then once we put our trust in him and we believe in him and we release that faith of understanding that he is, as you said, that continuous faithfulness, and we just know that we know that we know that these things are, and that he is, and that he is a rewarder of those who seek him diligently. These promises, like that one,
Yeah.
are truth. And you believe that, you align with that, you release that faith in him, and just knowing, like you said, it's really beautiful, because he's always faithful, he's always there.
Oh, bless you,
even,
sis. Really, honestly, I mean,
even
just the, oh,
it's just
just the other day, I'm riding in my car and and I don't know, was I hear a Christian song on the radio? I don't know what it was, but this word comes into my heart, into that knowing place again, where it just said, "I will not quit on you.
mm,
I won't give up on you. I have
mm.
invested myself in you. I've got inside you. I'm changing you from the inside out. I've given you a desire to want what I want. Delight yourself in the Lord, and He will give you the desires of your heart." Well, the cool thing is He's sneaky. If we want what He wants, He puts His desires in, and we end up wanting what He wants anyway. So,
Right, and the key
and
word there is desire. People,
yeah.
okay, don't okay, from what you've seen of me now and know of me, and we've been sort of rolling together for a minute here. The words have power, people. The words have power. Desire is actually rooted in the word that means pliable. So now what does
Oh,
that mean? When, and it's in that particular usage, in that particular scripture that you literally just quoted, what does that even look like? Let's ponder on that for a minute. Let's meditate on his word day and night. Like, let's consider that. What does it mean that he gives us the pliability of our heart. Think
Mm.
about that. Like desires are to be made pliable. It actually doesn't mean what we think it means as far as desire is concerned. We usually tie in
Oh
desire,
yeah.
unfortunately, to the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes,
Mm.
the pride of life. Let's get real. Like that's what it's tied to in this English language. But that's
Blessed
no.
are the flexible, for they shall not be broken. Um, no, but and I've had this conversation years over the years, and I keep saying to God and to myself in the mirror, when are you going to learn? Why don't you please get to a place where you get over it, whatever it is, and you stop doing it, whatever it is. And I remember praying. I was walking my dog in the Middle East. I'll never forget this. And I'm walking along and I'm crying as I'm walking with her. And I'm saying, God, give me the whatever level or degree or level of intensity of want to, give it to me. That I so want what you want. I so desire what you want. I'm so willing to adjust to be in line with what you desire for my life, want for my do whatever it takes.
That's a
And
deep prayer.
and
That's about
and and,
like
and
the
that
one.
was a scary moment for me,
Yeah, yeah.
because I realized it was a turning point, and the peacock that the neighbors had that made all the noise at night and kept us awake was all her feathers were outside on the street, and my dog got blamed for it. And so this was a really key moment. You can understand, want what God wants, and a dead peacock. Go figure how you connect those two. You got to solve this for me, April. This was a big moment.
Uh, yeah, that's a conundrum because
There
I'm
you
here
go.
like there.
No,
See,
but the
there's
want
both.
to factor, I've written about it in my new book. It's the want to factor and
Well,
the
it's
desire to
interesting.
factor.
Yeah, because a peacock, oh my goodness, you can break that down. There's so much symbolism in a peacock over history, like
I
ancient
didn't think we would go there.
symbolism. No, but there's meaning and context in everything. It's just that most people don't actually look at and observe their surroundings, and they just again, it goes back to the busyness and
Oh
leaders
yeah.
across the
Yeah.
world and people in general are there's so much noise. We are being onslaughted with communication from every single direction.
Mhm.
I it's very interesting because the scripture that comes to mind right now is that the fact that the enemy comes at you one direction, but he has to flee from you, and it will be like from 7 different directions. Well, he's coming at us from 100 directions. So what does that look like when he has to flee? It's like 700 different directions. Let's be real. Just because the enemy's noise is amplified
Yeah.
doesn't mean that God's power is degraded as far as
Yeah.
the resonance quality, the
Yeah.
frequency quality, the amplitude quality. If we're talking
Yeah.
about sound and magnification and all of that jazz, like, no, the more that he comes at you, the more greater the overturn of victory is, and is going to be evident. Like, I don't know who needs that, but come on, like, that's real. That is real. This noisiness of this world may be transcending beyond what it used to be. We'll just say it like that because your wisdom is over decades, and I have decades, but not as many as you do. And
Oh, bless you for that. Thank you for
I hear
making me.
your
You,
profound sound counsel in
oh,
all
see,
aspects because
oh,
I
oh,
would have loved to be back there in the Jesus Revolution Trust. Like I would have
you've just earned a song. I'm gonna have to sing for you now. But
beautiful.
anyway,
I
no
suppose,
way.
but
Anyway, no, just want to comment on that.
yeah,
I'm on my way to the Middle East for an assignment from Missouri, where we live, and I've got a 4-hour layover. I've told this story, I think, on a couple of podcasts lately. I'm on a 4-hour layover in Chicago O'Hare, O'Hare, yeah, and it's busy, 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 as you know it can be. And I'm
right.
trying to find a quiet place where I can do some work. And the COVID was a was not there, but there was sort of a lull when it came to food services.
Mm,
And I found the place in the snack bar where I could sit down with my laptop and do my thing. There was a lady sitting on the other side of the counter. I said, "Please excuse me, can I plug in my, where you are?" She said, "No problem." And I'm working, I'm doing my thing, working, working, working. And after about 5 or 6 minutes, she interrupts me.
mm.
And I say, "Okay." She said, "Can I ask you a question?" And I said, "Okay." And she said, "What do you believe happens to people when they die?"
Oh wow, like that's not a snack bar conversation. conversation, but go ahead. Sounds
Well, I
like
said, and I wanted to say, are you equating the New York Yankees losing the World Series to dying? Because then I understand. No, that wasn't the answer she was looking for. It was,
she was wanting to know.
and her name was Grace, and she's from St. Louis, and I spent another hour or more with her, at least, just hearing her pain and hearing her questions, and she was wanting to know how somebody can know
Mm,
that deep inside that something is real, something is true, something is eternal, and that once it's there, it can't be taken from you.
right.
And that was what she was afraid of. That can't go into details, but
Oh, no, no, no. Yeah.
something had happened where she'd been robbed from
Mhm.
something, pain in her life.
Right.
And just to spend some time with her and sharing with her, pray with her, uh, I began to realize all I said that morning was, I'm available. I wasn't setting myself up to go and preach on the street corner or cram the Bible down someone's throat. That wasn't my,
At the
you know,
O'Hara Airport.
yeah, right there. Try to see
That was
how
my
far would I get with that.
itinerary.
Would work. Um, but there was, but again, that one cluster of seeds,
Mhm.
watered with some prayer, as I have done for ever since. I don't know where she is. All I know is that over the last 50 plus years, as I thought I shared fairly faithfully a word in some context or other, I've met people years later who I never saw, never met, never talked to. I mean, I'm not aware of it. Have come to me and said, "What you shared changed my life."
Right. And you
And
have
and
stages that you've been on, different environments that you've been on where the head count is, a larger number.
oh
So
yeah,
that is very interesting because it's
but it's that one-to-one thing that's just absolutely incredible
yeah,
too.
and
Yeah.
if we're not oh, I love this. If we're not actually yielded before we go into an environment, and this is for all of our kingdom leaders, faith-based leaders that are tuning in, that are believers in God. Like if you don't do your due diligence to actually yield before you go into environments, if you're placed in a position to of any type of influence or leading, and just for a throw in here with the words, I'm telling you, I'm going to say this probably on every broadcast. To lead is literally defined in Webster's dictionary. Noah Webster, 1828. Go find it. If you haven't solidified it as a sound resource, go find it. His testimony is amazing. But to lead, it simply means to go first. Like you are the one that goes first in something. So did you go first in something? Then you're a leader. I'm just going to put that in the environment because it needs to be in there. People need to understand that your words, your actions, everything that you do, what you say, what you think, how you operate, how you behave, how you engage with someone, just like Dave is saying, like he led someone through a conversation, and he was asked a question. She led by actually activating the conversation with the question. So it's a balance, it's a dance, it's a way that we impact one another. Leadership is beyond what the bounds of what society has called it. Like it's literally just anyways, we must yield before we go into those spaces and places. And I love that you're explaining that now, even just through your example, because if we don't, then there's so many things that we won't even be paying attention to. We won't be looking for. We won't be I call it spiritual situational awareness. We won't be operating in that and paying
Oh, you
attention.
shouldn't have said that word, because then I have to tell another quick story.
Oh,
I'm
no,
sorry.
no, go ahead. I love it.
Situational. I mean, here we go. I am asked to do a training course with the senior leaders of the world's biggest engineering, procurement, and construction company in the oil and gas sector. I've
Okay.
got 27 top people who've been designated as the future of this multinational, multi-country.
27, huh? That's a big
Yeah,
number.
yeah. Anyway, so it wasn't an easy task.
No.
And they want me to talk about situational leadership. That was the goal.
Oh, how funny. Okay.
Yeah. And
When was
so
it? Was
what
this
I do,
recently?
what? Oh yeah, it was in the Middle East not long ago.
Oh, how
So
funny. Okay.
so I talk about democratic leadership. I talk about dictatorial leadership. I talk about coaching type leadership, whatever. I had 6 of them. And
Okay.
number 7, and at the beginning of the course, I said to them, I want you to repeat after me. And these guys were from a particular culture and country where repeating was very important.
Mm.
So I said, repeat after me. It depends. I go, yes, yes, Mr. Dave, it depends. Say it again. It depends. Fine. Let's talk about dictatorial leadership. Some days you're going to have to be a dictator. You're just, but trust is critical with your people. If you're going to lead them and have to make hard decisions, then if they trust you, you can do that. Tomorrow you may have to be a coach. Tomorrow after that you may have to have the group together, have a discussion, and it's kind of like a democracy. Blah 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 blah. But every day, every situation, it depends. You have to be flexible, adaptable, etc.
Oh my.
Final one on the last day of the week was servant leadership.
Mm.
And through the week, I've got them saying it 100 times. It depends. It depends. And we get to servant leadership, and I've talked about the kinds of things that we've talked about today. And at the end of it, I said, great guys, any questions? And the one guy who is the unofficial leader of the group put up his hand, and everybody, oh, he's going to ask a question. They get their pens ready to write what he's going to ask and what I'm going to answer.
Oh,
And he says to me, Mr. Dave, can you please tell me which one is right?
what?
And I go, exactly. What?
Exactly.
Were you even here on Monday? I mean, seriously, this is, it depends, it depends, it depends. I said the core, the heart and soul of it is of a servant heart of any kind of leader is that you have to care, you have to build trust, and if you do, I'm saying for me, I changed. I said the heart and soul of all the leadership styles has to be a servant heart. But anyway, I said that if trust is there and you're consistent and authentic, you can be anything that they need you to be, and they'll trust you. But
Mm,
as soon as you cross the line and betray that, then you've lost. And I
right.
said, so the authenticity for me, the theme, if there's two things that I'm famous for in the Middle East these days, number one, be consistently authentic. That's the key. They said, you're Dave, you're the guru, you write books on this, you speak on this all over the world. What's the key to being a successful leader? Consistently authentic. And I go, that's
Boom.
it? And I go, yeah, that's pretty much it.
Did you drop the mic and walk away?
Then the next thing they said, ask is how. And I said, well, here's the key. Don't boil the ocean, boil a teacup. What do you mean? I said, well, you can't change the whole culture. You can't change the whole organizational culture and make it a whatever you think it should be. Start with your own team, start with your own people, start with one or two, boil a couple of teacups and consistently live it and demonstrate it and be available and be a good listener, be flexible, be reasonably emotionally intelligent and mature, but be consistently authentic. Boil a couple of teacups. Don't try to boil the whole thing. And word will get out. Trust will be built. And so they kind of said, we're paying you all that money just to say those things? I said, yeah, that's pretty much it.
But what does it resonate with? It resonates with the core of the importance and
Yeah,
value of every single person. Every connection that you
yeah.
make matters. I love it because it literally one will lead into the other. The
But
foundation is established on a solid foundation,
absolutely.
and it pours out and flows over. And then you get the cup, the boiling teacup flowing over, overflowing. It's all pressed down, shaken
Well,
together.
yeah, there you go. But everybody keeps saying to me, you've got to learn the skill of being empathetic. Well, I'm
Mm,
sorry. And I've kind of nipped that one in the bud. I said, well, I'm sorry. From a spiritual perspective, as a child of not of the universe. I can't preach the Christian thing too hard, but I've said in those places. But empathy is a gift. And I said to them, the moment you actually care, I mean, truly care about that person that you're called to lead, that you genuinely care about their family, their work-life balance, their
right.
growth, their development, and they're not an exploitable commodity so that you can achieve your performance goals and your KPIs. Well, as soon as you care, empathy can be born,
Mm,
and then that gift can then grow. but it's not a you can learn the skills of empathy, and it's basically fake it till you make it sort of thing, but you'll get exposed at some point. Consistent authenticity with true empathy, wow, you can rule the world. Well, we
Yes.
don't want to rule the world, we want him to rule the world, but you know what
Yes,
I mean.
yes, yeah. I knew what you mean. Yeah. But again, that goes back to our beginning of our conversation about the differences of idioms and
Oh
colloquial
yeah.
phrases. And we got to be watching, the way that we articulate things, especially across cultures and the world, is important. And it's one of those things where it goes back to being intentional and teachable at the same time with what we do as leaders, because there are impacts that we could make that we don't intend to make, obviously. But if we just pivot slightly, or if we just shift slightly in the way that we express those things and communicate those things, then that will hit, it will land like it needs to, like we intended it to do in the first place. And it's just taking that moment to step back, consider the audience that we're serving, consider the people that we're showing up for, considering the atmosphere that we're entering into, the culture, the social
Oh,
dynamics, all of the
April,
moving
now you're gonna have to read my other book.
parts.
I mean, I've got a book called Wiredness coming out. I've got a tool that I built called Wiredness, and it's basically, what is your emotional intelligence DNA? And it's
Mm,
basically the idea of know yourself, know your people. And if I
exactly.
know who I am and know my style and know my preferences, but I know also what I need to be in different contexts, and I take the time to know you and your need, well, then we can connect, we can build, we can do something beautiful. But
Exactly.
again, we're not patient enough in the West these days, I'm afraid.
Ooh,
We want to check the boxes and get, okay, there's 10 habits of finally highly effective people
right.
by Stephen Covey, but I had lunch with him, by the way.
Oh, did you?
Yeah,
Well,
he
hold
didn't know I was at the table, but
on. You guys, I want to let you know that you can connect with Dave Lutes at on his website at undernewmanagement.com. Now, each word has a hyphen in between it, so it's under-new-management.com. But you guys, I really want you to connect with him. Of course, he is a breath of fresh air on a lot of topics when it comes to leadership. So if your organization or business needs his assistance,
whoa,
be sure to book
love
him,
that.
reach out to him. If you're interested personally as a leader, he has a phenomenal extensive database, I guess, of resources available for you to dive into on his website. And then, of course, he is accessible. I love that about Dave, because there are sometimes when we go high up on the world's ladder of advancement. I'm trying to phrase this properly. And
Yeah,
when
it's very lonely up there in the clouds. I'm
it's
sorry.
lonely, but
You,
sometimes that loneliness is self-inflicted because we remove access to like-minded potential new connections by blocking access. And so then we've got not just one gatekeeper, but we've got 4 levels of gatekeepers before
good
anybody
point.
can get access to us. And it's very interesting how that works both in the business sector, and I've seen it in ministry as well. And so when you've got 10,000 people that's in your congregation, all of a sudden nobody can find you. Nobody can even talk to you. And I get that there's a threshold of time guardianship responsibility, stewardship, however you want to phrase it, that a leader needs to do, but not being accessible to those in the kingdom, the body of believers that are coming up in the ranks on a spiritual level, like the authority shifting, the movements of God. Like if we block access, I think that we're going to hinder the moves of God that could be expanding further than they are, because we're putting the cap on who we get connected to. I love that God's connected me and you, brother, because it's amazing. You have done so much for not just business professionals and ministry leaders and all that jazz, but you've moved spiritual mountains on a one-on-one basis for people across the world and help them find the knowing. I guess would be going back to our conversation of that Ephesians 1 caliber. Paul's over there talking, give them a spirit of wisdom and a revelation to the knowledge of God, so that their eyes of their heart may be enlightened, to the hope of his calling. And it continues on. You guys go check it out. Ephesians 1 prayer is awesome. But that's what you've done through your life's work. It resonates all the way through this conversation. And I just love that about you. And I love that you are accessible and that you are there to serve others in that servant leadership. So not only are you teaching servant leadership and you pour in people the core value of servant leadership and help them unlock their potential in that, but you also walk it yourself. So I thank you and I honor you for that.
Wow, you really set me up now. I'm going to have to behave myself.
Oh, how no. Just keep on, like they said, consider how we can spur one another on to the love and good works we're called to, not neglecting the fellowship. But ultimately, I'm just going to encourage you to continue doing just as
Bless
you
you.
are. Yeah.
Bless you, April. No, thank you. You too. No, you really, thank you for your ministry. Truly. Real blessing. Thank you.
Yes, sir. All right, you guys, be sure to connect with him. I don't know what you got going on, but I love that. What God put in my heart to put through the business is you're literally one connection away from your next level. But when I say that, and when you see me say that on any of my stuff, I'm telling you, connection, relationship, just a conversation can spark something, just ignite something, and it sets you ablaze. It sends you off down a different path that you didn't expect. And then boom, like impromptu pop-up style, God just shifts everything and accelerates it. It elevates it. It's all of that. But are we showing up to receive? Are we holding on to stuff? And we don't have the hands available to actually do that. These are the things that we need to consider, ponder on, meditate on, reason with the Lord on in our daily walks. Like every day, just like get before him. That's the encouragement I hope that you take away from this broadcast. And we'll see what he has to say on the next one through a couple of yielded brother and sisters in Christ, just hanging out, being awesome, talking about stuff and things. That's what we're doing here today, isn't it, brother? All right, Dave. Thank you so much. You guys have a blessed day. Thank you.
Bless you. Thank you.